it's Alex, the Bookubus. Today I'm going to be doing my Old School April wrap-up, so I will be talking about all of the books I read and all of the films I watched during the month of April. Old School April was so much fun. It really was an absolute blast. Thank you so much to Kelsey for putting it all together. She did such an amazing job. And yeah, thank you to all of the awesome co-hosts as well. Everyone will be linked below. Yeah, I just had such a good time hanging out with everyone, joining in with some of the live shows and chatting with everyone on Discord. Yeah, thank you so much to everyone who joined in. It really was such a fun month, and yeah, I didn't want it to end. But yeah, sadly it did. But there's always next year's Old School April to look forward to. I very much look forward to that, and there is hopefully going to be an in-person meetup at some point during next year's event. So if I can be there, I will be there. So that's super exciting. Anyway, what did I actually read and watch during this recent Old School April? Before I get into that, I was hoping to get this video done a couple of weeks ago, but I wasn't feeling very well for a couple of weeks, and yeah, so it just got kind of pushed to now, but a little bit belated, but better late than never. So reading wise, I ended up reading 13 books in total. Most of them were very short books though. And I think I completed everything that I had on my original TBR, plus a couple of extra ones, and I think I completed all of the prompts as well. And that reminds me, the winners of the team that got the most points for Old School April was the Blue Barracudas. Chomp chomp. So well done, guys. We did an amazing job, I think. So yay us, go team. Anyway, what books did I read? I'm going to start off with my favourite one of the month, which was, sorry, this is in plastic wrap. So this is Tapping the Vein by Clive Barker, and this is 2 of his short stories adapted into like graphic format. I gave this 5 stars. It was absolutely brilliant. The art style of both of them is very different from each other. One of the stories I had read before and loved, and one of the stories I had not yet read, but I loved that one too. Yeah, I thought the adaptation was fantastic. The art style was really, really great in both cases. Yeah, this was just such a good time. This was a gift from my husband for my birthday earlier this year. It was a surprise. I didn't know he was getting me this, and it's signed by Clive Barker. So yeah, it's a wonderful piece, a collectible to own, and yeah, absolutely loved reading it. Okay, and the rest of the books, I'm just going to go through them as I have them in this pile. So Tricycle by Russell Rhodes. This is a paperbacks from hell vintage horror about it's set at like a boys' school, and there is one of the teachers' wives who has a bit of a thing for some of these teenage boys. And this couple's kid, the one with the tricycle, doesn't like the fact that his mother is, going off with these teenage boys. And so some of them start to die. There's always this sound of this squeaky tricycle riding away. So that's only part of the story. The other part is there's a character who used to attend this school, and now he has been studying to become a teacher, and he now comes back to this school to do that. But recently he had been in an accident and was blinded, so he is still coming to terms with that, and getting used to being back at the school and being blind. All the while these things are going on around him, and it seems like he might be the next target. So I really liked this one. I thought it was going to be good, but sometimes, they don't live up to the covers. But I thought this one was great. It's definitely a bit of a slow burn, but I really liked the characters, and I really liked, the way that the story went. I won't say any more than that, but this was a really good one that I enjoyed very much. I gave it 4 stars. Next up, another vintage horror title was Dream House by E. Patrick Murray, another wonderful cover. This one was good, but not great, unfortunately. So this one is about a creepy house that has been abandoned for some time, and there are some, yeah, kind of dark secrets going on there about what actually happened. And there's kind of a long way to get to it, but basically the gist is that this family move in, and the young daughter is, yeah, she's had some weird experiences in this house. She doesn't like being there. And it turns out that there are a number of ghosts of a sort who used to live in this house and were performing some strange experiments, like medical experiments. And anyway, the fact that these people have now moved in, the ghosts want to use them as part of their final experiment. And yeah, so it's kind of an odd concept. And the story itself wasn't as strong as I thought Tricycle was. Like, I think the characters and the story were a bit hit and miss. I did really like some of the elements, and it had some great visuals at times, but yeah, otherwise it just kind of meandered a bit. And yeah, it was okay. I think I gave it 3.5 stars because there were some elements that I did really enjoy, but it wasn't as strong a story overall. There's also, yeah, one of the other characters is this artist who has been, yeah, kind of a struggling artist, but then he meets someone who is going to promise him, you know, riches and fame, you know, in exchange for something. So yeah, so there's kind of a few different elements going on. It did feel a bit, yeah, like I say, a bit of a mixed bag. So 3.5 stars. I read a point horror book. This was The Phantom by Barbara Steiner. And I remember reading another one of hers a couple of years ago. I think it was The Mummy, and I wasn't a big fan. So I did go into this one with low expectations. But this one actually really surprised me. I gave this one 4 stars. I thought it was really good. So this is about one particular school, and the previous year their like star football player died, and everyone is still kind of in mourning over it because everyone loved him and he was such a great player. And one of the characters is this guy's girlfriend, who is still, yeah, very upset over losing him, but she is trying to move on. And then the main character here is the best friend of that girl. And she is, yeah, trying to deal with everything as well, and is kind of sympathetic towards her friend still grieving, but also kind of thinks it should be time that she moves on with her life. And anyway, the school year is kicking off and they have a football game, and there's this like ghost of the guy that died that appears at this football game, and everyone's freaking out. And they think that it's, you know, someone pulling a prank, but they don't know who it is. And anyway, this ghost or whatever it is appears again, and a couple of people get into accidents. So yeah, what exactly is going on? Is it really a supernatural thing? Is he back, you know, for some kind of revenge? Or yeah, is it someone else trying to pull some kind of prank that is going horribly wrong? Yeah, I think this one did a really good job with having different potential suspects for who might be involved with this. And yeah, obviously won't spoil it, but I just thought this one was really good. It was really solid. Yeah, a bit more of like a slower burn story, but it had some great moments, and I gave this one 4 stars. I also read Twitches by H.B. Gilmore and Randy Reisfeld. This one is the first book in that series, called The Power of Two, and this is about 2 twin sisters who were separated at birth because they were born into like a family of witches, but they knew that if they were kept together, their power would be too strong, and there's like a bad witch who would no doubt try and seek them out and take them under his wing to use their power for bad stuff. So for whatever reason, yeah, it was decided that the best thing to do would be to separate them at birth, give them to 2 random families and hope they never meet up. But of course they do meet up, and because they look identical, they figure out that they're related, and they also, yeah, both figure out that their witchy powers combined are very strong and they can do certain things. So I did like the sister stuff here. Their individual stories were pretty good, and yeah, when they came together, I enjoyed that part of the story. But it does go back and forth. We kind of follow some of these other witches. That stuff just, I honestly found quite boring, and just wasn't really into it. The kind of the way that witchcraft was portrayed, I guess. I know it's only fun, but yeah, I just kind of found that stuff a bit boring, and the characters themselves were just kind of blah. But the sister stuff I thought was fun, and overall it was a decent read. I gave it 3 stars. I don't think I'll be rushing out to buy any more of the series though. I read a Goosebumps book, which was The Haunted Mask by R.L. Stine, of course, one of the more famous Goosebumps books, and this was my first time reading it. And yeah, this was a lot of fun. I think everyone is pretty familiar with this one, so I won't say too much about it, but thoroughly enjoyed it, 4 stars. And carrying on with the middle grade stuff, I also read a Shivers book. This is The Curse of the New Kid by M.D. Spencer. This was my first ever Shivers book. And this one, yeah, was a lot of fun too. It's about this kid who, every time he moves to a new school, he's always bullied and just never makes any friends. And yeah, the story kicks off with him moving to a new school and things going horribly wrong for him. But then things start to change, and people that are bullying him start to get hurt somehow, and there's some strange things going on. This one was kind of crazy, but really enjoyable. Yeah, I really enjoyed the writing style, and it was kind of wild for a middle grade book, I would say. So yeah, I don't want to say too much about it, but it had some pretty crazy moments and was just an entertaining read. So I gave this one 4 stars too. And then another middle grade one I read was A Ghost in the House by Betty Wren Wright. I had read another one of hers a while ago, which I really enjoyed, The Ghost of Ernie P. So I was looking forward to reading more by her. And yeah, this one was great too. So this is about a family who move into the house owned by, I think it's like their a grandmother or a great aunt or something, I'm forgetting now, because she's had to move into like a nursing home. But then, yeah, without going into too much detail, she ends up having to move back into the house with them, and they are taking care of her. But yeah, the daughter of the family that we're following in this story, she starts to experience some strange things in this house, and once she, yeah, gets to know the older lady a bit more, she finds out, you know, more about why that might be happening. This one, there's not a ton of supernatural stuff. It's kind of interspersed throughout it. A lot of it is more like almost family drama kind of thing, and just, yeah, just family stuff and stuff to do with the house. But I really, really did like the supernatural stuff when it happened. It does get a bit dark actually towards the end with learning more about what was going on. And I really enjoyed the main character and her relationship with the older relative as the story goes on. Like, that was just adorable and really heartwarming and a bit emotional as well. And yeah, this one was just a really cozy read. Like, it was just a really great one to snuggle up with. I really enjoyed the writing and the story and the characters. I just thought it was, yeah, a really good cozy time with, you know, with a bit of supernatural stuff thrown in. So yeah, this one was great too, and I gave it 4 stars. I also read, sorry for the glare, Night of the Bat by Paul Zindel, and I think Kelsey read this one as well and enjoyed it. So this one is about a kid who travels to meet up with his father, who is doing some studies into bats in like some rainforest. And anyway, long story short, there is a giant bat killing people. That's really all you need to know. And this one had some like really gruesome and detailed scenes that I would not necessarily expect from a middle grade book. So that was pretty fun and yeah, pretty gnarly. So those bits were definitely the highlights. I think otherwise the story itself, I did honestly find a bit boring at times. Like it was fine, but yeah, if it hadn't been for those crazy moments, I don't know how much I would have enjoyed it really. I think I gave this one 3.5 stars because yeah, it was pretty fun overall. And then I also read this one, A Fate Totally Worse Than Death by Paul Fleischman, with this really great cover. This was very kindly sent to me by my friend Sandy, so thank you for this. This just kind of came into my possession just before Old School April, I think, so I was like, yeah, I need to add this to my TBR. And yeah, this is a, yeah, kind of a riff on the 90s horror really, and it was a lot of fun. It was definitely different to what I expected. I thought it was going to be a slasher, but it isn't. But yeah, basically we're following a group of friends, girlfriends at a school, and there's this new girl that joins their class, and she's very beautiful. She's like a foreign student, and so of course they're all very jealous of her, and yeah, they decide for reasons that they want to kill her. But yeah, there's some other stuff going on as well. Yeah, this one was just a lot of fun, very kind of silly, but very humorous, very funny, and just, yeah, was a really good fun one to read. And I had never heard of it before, so it was a random one to pick up, but I'm really glad I did. I gave this one 4 stars as well. Yeah, it was just very entertaining. And then I also read this one, The X-Files, Devil's Advocate, X-Files Origins, Devil's Advocate by Jonathan Mayberry. This is a kind of YA novel that is following Dana Scully when she is a teenager. So this is set, I think it was in 1979. And this was very kindly sent to me by my friend Briar, so thank you so much. And I really enjoyed this one. I didn't know what to expect from it, honestly, but I really liked the story. I enjoyed the writing style. I enjoyed the character of Dana. And yeah, there's basically some weird stuff going on in her town, and some other teenagers have been dying under mysterious circumstances, and yeah, she gets involved in trying to figure out exactly what has happened to them. But you know, she puts herself in danger as well in trying to do so. Yeah, I just thought this one was a really solid read, very enjoyable, and I gave it 4 stars. So yeah, I'm really glad I was able to pick this one up too. And then 2 more books to talk about. These are ones I read on ebook, so I don't have physical copies. One of them was Burn the Negative by Josh Winning. I got an ARC for this through NetGalley, and this is about a character who starred in a horror film in the 90s, which was supposedly cursed, and you know, a few people related to that film have died. She is now a journalist and is being sent out to cover a new series that is being filmed, but it's only while she is on her way there that she finds out that it is based on this cursed film that she acted in as a kid. And so yeah, obviously a lot of memories and trauma come up from that, and yeah, some strange things start to happen, of course, while she's there, and she starts to see the villain from the original film, but yeah, is he really there? Is it something supernatural? Is it in her head? Is it someone dressing up as this villain? Yeah, definitely lots of possibilities going on here. And yeah, I thought this one was good. I definitely loved the premise of it, and I thought it started off really well. Definitely an easy one to get into, and yeah, just one that you want to keep reading. I think partway through it just started to get a bit not as captivating maybe, and you know, I still wanted to find out what was going on, so I kept reading, but I wasn't like as compelled by it for some of the story. And then I think the ending, without going into specifics, it just kind of got a bit convoluted, I think, and I don't feel that the ending was as satisfying as I would have liked it to have been. Yeah, hard to say much more about it without spoiling it. So it was still, yeah, a great premise, and I did really enjoy certain elements of it. I ended up giving this one 3 stars. And I read this as a buddy read with Kelly from Kelly Hooked on Books. And yeah, I think we had a similar reading experience. We both thought it was good, but there were, yeah, parts of it that, yeah, just didn't do it for us as much as other parts. And then the final book that I have to talk about was The Worm and His Kings by Hailey Piper. And this is one that was one of the host recommendations. This one was Katrina's pick. And yeah, my first Hailey Piper. I've been meaning to pick up some of her stuff for ages because I always hear good things. And this one is about a character who is currently living on the streets, and she is looking for her girlfriend who went missing recently. And yeah, she ends up becoming caught up in this very odd cult, and yeah, weird stuff going on there. Yeah, I thought this one was good. I thought it started off really strong. I was, yeah, curious about the story, and yeah, I thought the characters were really good. I think the middle part kind of, yeah, it just got a bit less interesting for me, like Burn the Negative. In this instance, I just felt like things were just happening. There wasn't really much like conflict or tension, or, you know, I didn't really have any kind of emotional investment in it for a chunk of it. And I was just kind of reading it to keep reading, I guess. It did pick up again though at some point towards the end. And I did think it got interesting again, and I was invested again. So that was good. Yeah, I gave this one 3.5 stars. I've seen a lot of people give this 5 stars, and yeah, it didn't wow me as much as that, unfortunately, but I did think it was good. So yeah, I gave this one 3.5 stars. And shout out to my friend Demi. We did this as a buddy read. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. Yeah, we had very similar thoughts about the book. Had a pretty similar reading experience. Okay, so that was everything I read. Yeah, overall had a pretty solid reading month, read lots of really great books, so that was awesome. And then moving on to the stuff that I watched, I did watch a lot. I watched like 20 something films, I think, so I'm not going to go into too much detail about them. I think I watched everything that was on my, you know, watch list for fulfilling prompts, and then I watched a few other things that weren't on my radar at the time, but I just ended up watching during the month. And then there were a few films that I picked out of my Lucky Dip film jar. So I didn't get to nearly as many of my Lucky Dip films as I would have liked to, but I have kept the jar for future, so hopefully I can dip into that from time to time. There were several that were rewatches for me. These are like firm favourites of mine that I revisited. So those included High Spirits, Ghost House, Heathers, Pump Up the Volume, Tenebrae, The Craft, and Jawbreaker. So yeah, it was fun to revisit those. And then there were 3 that were also rewatches for me, but that I watched during watch parties, and they were an absolute blast, including Teen Witch, Bring It On, and The Goonies. And then, yeah, moving on to the films that were first time watchers for me. I'll start off with my favourites. There were 3 kind of standout ones for me. So one was Legend, the Ridley Scott film starring Tom Cruise and Tim Curry. And yeah, this was one of those films that, you know, I'd always heard of over the years, but sometimes with those 80s films, if you don't see them as a kid, when you watch them as an adult, they just don't hit the same if you don't have that nostalgic attachment to them. So I think that was why I've been putting this one off for so long, because I just didn't want to be disappointed by it, I guess. But I shouldn't have worried, because I loved this. This was my favourite film, I think, of the whole month. I gave it 4.5 stars. I just really thought it was wonderful. Yeah, it definitely had some similarities to Labyrinth, which is one of my all-time favourites. But yeah, different enough that it was its own thing. It did come out before Labyrinth as well. But yeah, Tim Curry was absolutely incredible. And yeah, it was just magical and wonderful, and yeah, a bit dark as well. It just, yeah, some of it, you know, is more vibes than story, but it was definitely my thing. It was, yeah, just fantastical and gorgeous, and loved it. So that was great. Let's see what else. Darkness, which is a low budget film from the 90s, which my friend Aaron very kindly sent me on VHS. So huge shout out to him. Thank you so much for introducing me to this film, because I'd never heard of it before. But it is a vampire film, but yeah, does it in a very unique way of using vampires. This one, yeah, super low budget, but everyone is like committed, we're doing this. And yeah, the gore in it is fantastic, you know, for being such a low budget. I thought just the style of it and the music were just so good. Like, it was just such my kind of thing. Yeah, it's like, it's gritty and dark and gory, and just, yeah, had this really great atmosphere to it. Yeah, loved it. This is definitely a bit of a harder to find one, but if you're able to track it down, then I highly recommend it. Yeah, I gave this one 4 stars, and yeah, it's one I would love to rewatch at some point. And yeah, the third one that was kind of one of my favourites of the month was Tammy and the T-Rex, which was Katrina's pick for host recommendation. Yeah, this is one I've been meaning to watch for a while, because it got like a re-release a couple of years ago, I think. Or like a proper release, like a proper cut of the film as it had been originally intended. And I've been meaning to watch it, but it had kind of dropped off my radar. So yeah, thank you to Katrina for putting it back on my radar, and I'm glad I jumped on it for Old School April. This was an absolute blast. It's wild, but it's one of those ones that everyone is just like, we're doing this, you know, we are committed to the craziness. And yeah, that made it such a joy to watch. Yeah, this is about a guy and girl, and long story short, the guy's brain gets transplanted into this T-Rex, and the girl, Tammy, has to, deal with that, I guess. Yeah, this was just such an entertaining and wacky movie. It's very gory as well, which was a lot of fun. Yeah, just such a good time. Yeah, this is definitely one I will rewatch, and I gave it 4 stars. Okay, moving on to some other films. Sadly, my least favourite of the month was The Crater Lake Monster, which was Andrew's host pick. But it turns out I think we rated it the same, which was 2.5 stars. So yeah, this is about a dinosaur that is kind of awakened when these researchers are doing some stuff, and it goes on to terrorise the area. Yeah, very low budget. Yeah, not really much story. Yeah, lots of day for night shots that they then actually didn't adjust. So you've got people being like, oh, look at the stars, and it's just like broad daylight. So yeah, kind of entertaining in a way, but yeah, overall not my favourite. I gave it 2.5 stars. I'll talk about the 3 Lucky Dip films that I added. So these were a mixture of ones I had seen and ones I had not yet seen, but were mostly like 80s, 90s trashy horror. So let's see, I watched Don't Panic, which was actually really great. I really enjoyed this one. This is set in a high school, and there's a kind of a Ouija board thing that goes on at the beginning, and so there's like partly a kind of a demonic / possession thing going on. There's also like a dream related, you know, Nightmare on Elm Street kind of thing going on, and basically, yeah, these teenagers are starting to get killed throughout the movie, and we're following this one guy who I loved, and he has these most amazing like dinosaur pajamas. So yeah, it's definitely, you know, it's a bit low budget, it's a bit clunky, but it was just absolutely my kind of thing. It was really entertaining and yeah, creepy at times, really good effects. This one was, yeah, just my kind of thing, and I very much enjoyed it, and I gave it 4 stars. What else? Night Feeder, which was just a random one I'd found on Tubi ages ago. My Tubi watch list is like insane, and it's mostly just, yeah, low budget 80s and 90s horror. So this was just a random one that I added. And this is, yeah, definitely very low budget. Has some great moments though, but yeah, kind of story isn't like super compelling throughout. But it is worth it for the ending, I will say that. So overall I gave it 3 stars, but worth a watch, I would say. And then the other one was Critters, which I thought I had seen at a sleepover many years ago, but I think I must have seen one of the sequels, because yeah, watching Critters wasn't as familiar as I thought it was going to be. Obviously the critters themselves were, but yeah, I've no idea which of the sequels I have seen. I'll have to watch them all and find out. But so yeah, I guess this was my first time actually watching Critters, and yeah, I enjoyed this one. It was entertaining. It was just a good time. I gave it 3.5 stars. So moving on to some other ones that I watched Cuffs, which is not a horror film. This stars Christian Slater, which was the one and only reason that I wanted to watch it, because it's one of his I hadn't seen before. And yeah, not really much to say about it. I think if you like Christian Slater, then you will like this film, and if not, you probably won't, because he is basically just, you know, playing the same character that he played in all of the films in the 90s. But yeah, it has this whole, you know, him talking to the camera shtick, which I enjoyed. This one was actually better than I thought it was going to be. It was pretty entertaining, actually, and I gave it 3.5 stars. Theatre of Blood, starring Vincent Price. This is about a theatre actor who, yeah, has had terrible reviews from these critics, and he decides to, yeah, pick them off one by one as revenge, in very elaborate ways. So it's very much like Dr. Phibes, just kind of a different context, but I'm totally okay with that. Yeah, this one was great, very 70s. Vincent Price, as always, is brilliant, and yeah, this was just a really good time. Yeah, gotta love a creative kill. I gave it 4 stars. Another 70s one I watched was House on Straw Hill, which stars Udo Kier and Linda Hayden from Blood on Satan's Claw, one of my favourites. And this is kind of like a psychosexual thriller / horror about this writer who lives out in the countryside, Udo, and Linda comes in to help him write up his notes and stuff. But yeah, there's some stuff going on. There was a lot more sex in this than I was expecting, just to throw that out there. Not that that's a bad thing, but it was just, I wasn't expecting it. And yeah, I just loved the tone and the atmosphere of this one. Really enjoyed the way that it was shot. And yeah, it just had this kind of unsettling tone throughout it that was great. Yeah, great performances. Yeah, if you like 70s stuff and that sounds interesting to you, then I highly recommend it. I gave this one 4 stars. Lauren, which is one I only recently heard about, but it's from the 80s, and I'd heard that it was kind of like a folk horror film, and it's got a great poster. Yeah, this one was not quite what I was expecting. It was pretty slow, and it had some interesting elements and some interesting visuals, and at times the atmosphere was really great, but yeah, otherwise it was pretty slow, and didn't really like hold my interest as much as I wanted it to. So yeah, this is kind of a lesser known title. I'm glad I checked it out, but yeah, it wasn't my favourite. I gave this one 3 stars. And I think last up for the films was Crybaby Lane, which was a last minute recommendation by one of my friends here, and I thought, yeah, I'll add that to my list, why not? So this was a Nickelodeon film that I guess there's like, over recent years, people had been trying to figure out whether it was a real thing or a fever dream, because they hadn't aired it since its original air date, and so it was kind of considered lost media for a while, I think. But yeah, it exists and it has since been shown, and I just watched it on YouTube. So this one is about like a kind of local legend that there were these conjoined twins that were like cut in half, and you know, one of them was bad, one of them was good. And anyway, in the present day, we're following these couple of kids, and yeah, some creepy stuff starts to happen. Yeah, this one was kind of fun. It was a bit slow at times, but yeah, it kind of had some dark elements for, you know, I'm sure that's not something that Nickelodeon films did frequently. So that was cool. And yeah, overall, I thought it was good. Glad I checked it out. I gave it 3 stars. And one more film that I watched was The Watcher in the Woods, which is a Disney film from the 80s. I believe it's based on a novel. And this one is about a family who move into this old house. And there's an older lady played by Betty Davis who lives in a smaller house on the same property. And years ago, her daughter mysteriously went missing. And when this new family move in, one of the daughters starts to experience, some strange goings on that, you know, might be related to this girl's disappearance. So yeah, this one was another one that was different to what I was expecting. Yeah, it does have some supernatural elements, but yeah, it also has some other stuff going on. So this wasn't, I didn't have Disney Plus or anything to stream it, so I ended up getting the DVD from my library, and it had alternate endings to it, which I highly recommend checking out. I am not going to say what happens in the alternate ending, but it was amazing. That definitely like made the film for me. I looked it up afterwards, and I believe that was meant to be the original ending, but it did not go down well with test audiences, so they changed it. I wish they'd kept it because it was really incredible and unexpected. So yeah, if that doesn't pique your interest, then yeah, it's hard to say anything about it though, because it would be a huge spoiler. But definitely recommend checking out the alternate ending if you have not seen that, if you've only ever seen the original cut that was actually released. Yeah, it gives it a whole different vibe. So that was all of the films that I watched. I did also watch some TV show episodes. I did join in with one of the Saturday morning cartoon watches on Discord, which was a lot of fun. I think we watched Care Bears, Scooby-Doo and Inspector Gadget. There might have been something else in there as well that I'm blanking on. But yeah, that was a ton of fun and really cool to hang out with people on a Saturday morning. And then, the other ones that I watched that had been on my watch list for some of the prompts, I watched an episode of Funhouse, which was an 80s kids game show. That was very entertaining and fun to revisit. Nightmare, which was another, 80s kids show, kind of a Dungeons and Dragons vibe. So good. I really enjoyed revisiting that. Crystal Maze, which was an adult game show from like the 90s, which was fun to revisit as well. I watched the Haunted Mask episode of Goosebumps, the show. So I'd never seen any of these before, but since I read the book, The Haunted Mask, I figured I should follow it up and watch the adaptation. And yeah, this one was really fun too. It definitely follows the book pretty closely for the most part. I thought the actress for the main character did a really good job. It was fun and entertaining. So yeah, definitely enjoyed that. And then I also watched 2 episodes of Freddy's Nightmares, which were, as always, great because that show is just the best. And I was, following along with my friend's podcast, Primetime Bitch. Watching the episode and then listening to their podcast. A ton of fun. So yeah, I think that brings us up to speed on everything I watched, which was quite a lot actually. And then comparing that to this month, I think I've watched like 3 films so far, and we're like, 2/3 of the way into the month. So yeah, definitely a bit of a difference. But when you're trying to get points for your team, you do what you got to do. Apparently it worked because we won. So yay. Anyway, this has probably turned into a pretty long video. I was considering splitting it up into, doing one for the books and one for the films, but I was just like, since I'm doing this late anyway, I figured I would just do it all in one go and get it done, you know. So here we are. Hopefully this wasn't too much of a rambly mess. I feel like I'm talking a mile a minute just to try and cram everything in and make it not like hours long. But yeah, thank you again to everyone who joined in with Old School April. Yeah, it really was an absolute blast. It already feels like forever ago, which is really sad. But yes, very much looking forward to next year's event. And yeah, if you joined in, I would love to hear about what your favourite book and or film was that you watched during the month. So I think that wraps it up for now. Thank you ever so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully I will see you again in my next video.